The continuation of Is God Sovereign in Your Life?
Still not giving up. Still not giving up his faith that God is in full control. God was in control. People, I want you to see this. We don't see through the eyes of Joseph. We don't. We don't allow, we don't give, and I'm including myself, we do not give God enough recognition of his sovereignty in our lives. Whatever is meant for evil against us right now, God is meaning it for good. How much do we trust him? How much do we, are you still willing to say God is sovereign? I'm asking. Israel, Jacob, the Bible tells us, loved Jacob more and favored Joseph rather more than all the other brothers. I think it's because it was his very first son by the very first woman that he ever loved. That beautiful and well-formed woman that the Bible tells us. She was picturesque. She was drop-dead gorgeous. Not that our wives are, they still drop-dead gorgeous as far as I'm concerned. But he favors Joseph, so much so that he makes him a coat of many colors. What does that mean? Royalty. Just plain royalty. It freaks the other 11 brothers out so much. They hate him deeply. They really do. That's step number one. He's just walking around with his coat of many colors. This is a royal young 17-year-old boy. But I don't think he was actually arrogant with it. He was proud of his coat. The Bible doesn't tell us that Joseph gloated over his brothers. The Bible just tells us that Jacob favored Joseph and made him this coat. But this is where the freakish thing starts happening, as Joseph has these dreams. What dreams does he have? I'm going to read it to you. Verse 5 of chapter 37 says, he has this dream. In fact, he has two dreams right side by side. The first dream causes his brothers to hate him. The second dream causes him to say, enough's enough, now we're going to kill you. What's the first dream? He says to them, hear this dream, what I have dreamed. Now, by the way, he's standing in his royal coat before his brothers. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. Sheaves of what? Of wheat. So that when you bind them and they're laying down, right? And you stack them. We were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. Now imagine this. The sheaf of wheat, you guys know how it looks. It's bound in the middle. It's like kind of flaring at the side, and it's kind of really bound at the bottom. It's lying, and suddenly his arises. Those ones don't arise, but they bow to his sheath. What a dream. Do you need to be a rocket scientist to say that there were 11 sheaths who bowed to my sheath? 11 brothers? Do you need to? They figured it out very quickly. Very, very quickly. How are we going to bow to you? Listen to their words. His brother said to him, are you indeed to reign over us? They ask him two questions. Family, this is very important. They ask him two questions. Are you indeed to reign over us, royalty? Do they know that what that question is will come true to the T? He will reign over them. Or will you rule over us? This is the second question. That rule is actually a harsh word. Will you rule over us with a fist of iron? With an iron fist? That will also come true. So they hated him even more for the dreams and his words. Now, if that's not enough, he dreams another dream. This time it even cheeses his father off. He dreams another dream, and he says, behold, I've dreamed another dream. The sun and the moon. Who's the sun and the moon? The sun's the father, the moon's the mother. Right? I'll make that plain to you. By the way, Rachel's dead. Who's the next mother? It would be Leah. Behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars. Who's the 11 stars? You don't have to be a rocket scientist. The sons were bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father and his brothers, even his father rebukes him and said to him, what is this dream you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves before you on the ground? Absolutely, yes, sir, you will. That is coming. Joseph didn't know, but that would happen exactly as he dreamed. So the brothers were jealous of him, but the father kept the saying in his mind, and it goes on that his brothers plan this murder. What goes on is they sell him into slavery. They actually want to kill him. Reuben comes to the rescue. Let's find Reuben over here. See a son, a surprise. What a surprise. Reuben comes to the rescue. The other ones wanted to kill him. Reuben comes to the rescue. He says, do not do this evil thing. Rather, let him go back to his father. You'll kill our father. You'll kill his heart. But as it so happens, you have these sojourners, these Midianites coming along with their caravan, so they sell him into slavery. I'm going to go through the story very quickly because I need to come to a very important point. And this is the point I'm trying to make over here. They sell him into slavery. This is 17 years old, a young kid. He goes and he gets sold by chance to the captain of the guard of Pharaoh by the name of Potiphar. And he gets sold to him, and very quickly he finds favor in Potiphar's eyes, and he gets put in charge of the household. But Potiphar has a wicked wife who is really a loose woman, and she tries to seduce Joseph, and we know how the story goes. Joseph runs away, she grabs his coat, screams bloody murder, and Potiphar knows that his wife has got something to do with this. How do we know this? The Bible gives us a very, very small inkling that he doesn't put him into the pit of pits, he puts him into Pharaoh's prison. So it's as bad as it is, it's at least better than the other prison. So somehow Potiphar still has mercy on Joseph. Joseph spends 9 to 10 years in prison. Get it? 9 to 10 years. And in those 9 to 10 years, it was the baker and the cupbearer who had these two dreams, and Joseph interprets their dreams. The baker would be hanged because of his dream. The cupbearer both of them would have their heads raised. The cupbearer would come back and he would be serving Pharaoh, and the baker would be hanged. It says 2 years goes past. Didn't remember Joseph. The Bible tells us when Joseph interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, Pharaoh makes him prime minister of the land. Joseph was 30 years old. 17 minus 30, or 30 minus 17 is 13. It's kind of calculated between his sojourn to Egypt and his being sold into slavery, into Potiphar's house, around about 9 to 10 years he spent in prison. But still not giving up. Still not giving up his faith that God is in full control. Verse 46 of chapter 41 says Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh. I'm going to just tell you the story. We're not going to read it. We know about Pharaoh's dream. We know about the famine. Joseph explaining to Pharaoh that there's a seven good years coming and the 7 bad years coming. Let's start storing away now for the bad years. And he does it. And he gets raised up to Grand Vizier, Prime Minister, second only to Pharaoh. He actually is so in charge. He has the right of life and death. Get this. Chapter 42, I want you to see this for with your own eyes. Go back to the dream. You will bow before me. Go back to the 2 questions. Will you reign over us or will you rule over us? Will you be our king or will you be ruling over us with an iron fist? Who do you think you are? And they hated him even more. 42. Chapter 42 starts out that the brothers have to go to Egypt. Now I'm going to go quickly through this. Verse 6. He was the one who sold. Actually, let's take it from the beginning of verse 6. Now Joseph was governor or prime minister or grand vizier, whatever word you want to use. He was the big head over the land. He was the one who sold to all people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before them with their faces to the ground. This is a king, and they came. What would you do to a king? You put your face to the ground. You don't even make eye contact with him. And Joseph recognized his brothers, verse 8. But they did not recognize him, and Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them. Now comes the ruler of the iron fist. Guess what he does to them? Verse 17. And he puts them into custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go. So 2 things happen. Both dream, well, at least the first dream comes true. Both questions are fulfilled in verse 42, chapter 42. They come to him, he is king, and he actually rules over them and throws them in prison for 3 days. Rules over them over the iron fist. Did Joseph know this was going to happen? Joseph clung to God for 9 to 10 years in prison, finding favor with God, even in prison. So much so that the head of the prison guard, let actually Joseph have free reign in the prison. Such favor had Joseph found in the eyes of everyone he came in contact with. God was in control. People, I want you to see this. We don't see through the eyes of Joseph. We don't. We don't give, and I'm including myself, we do not give God enough recognition of his sovereignty in our lives. When things are tough, are we still showing so much of God that other people see the favor of God in us? That's my question to you. Everything from chapter 12 right through comes true to the T as God wants it to be. Forgive the poem, the rhyme, that wasn't meant to be. And of course, let's go on. I need to get through this. 44, Joseph has a lot more to do with his brothers. He tests his brothers. And it goes on, he fills one of the bags, actually Benjamin, the youngest brother, with his silver cup. But I want to get to the end. We're running out of time. There's so much to be said here. My concentration this morning is on God's sovereignty and exactly that meaning of the name of Joseph. God may add and God may take away. Chapter 49. Jacob blesses all the sons before he dies. Benoni, he says this to him. 49 verse 27. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, and in the evening dividing the spoil. Jacob says this of God allows Jacob to see what Benjamin would actually turn out to be. Son of my sorrows. You will become a thorn in the flesh. And Benjamin, son of my right hand. What does right hand always depict? Power. Power. Benjamin would literally, in his mom's last moments, would literally become that person that his mom said he would be. Unknowingly, inadvertently. But let's take a closer look at Joseph. We're back to chapter 50. 20 of chapter 50 says, as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. Every single moment of Joseph's life in captivity, from a young kid of 17 years old to that age, he had one thing in his sight, was the sovereignty of God. Do you realize that 15 says, when the dad had died, these brothers knew there was no one to protect them anymore. They deeply feared, because they knew now, they had found out that Joseph was their brother. They knew now that he had power over their lives. He could, at any moment, have every single one of them and their families killed there and there, and they would deserve it. There's nothing, no one protecting them anymore. Jacob is dead. In fact, Jacob is taken back to where? You've got to see this. To Canaan in chapter 49. Well, chapter 49 into 50. Jacob is taken back to where he came from. Canaan. Where would the Jews land up? Canaan. What did God tell Abraham? Canaan. This is the land I'll give to you, the Jebusites, the Rephaim, and the Orbizites. I'm going to give to you. So in God's sovereignty, the bones of Jacob are taken back to Canaan. By the way, when Joseph dies and they come out of the Exodus, whose bones gets taken to Canaan? Joseph's bones. That's the land that God would give to them, God showing God's sovereignty. But these brothers were so scared of Joseph. He had the power over life and death that they come begging him. I don't know if they were really remorseful for their sin. Actually, I have a clue that they did, because a lot of this shows me how Judah's heart, Judah, the one who headed this up, this murderous plot was headed up by Judah, how he repented and changed from where we see it, at least 27, 29, where they sell him off into slavery, up to now, how his heart changes. So one would think, are they remorseful? Have they really repented? Or are they just scared of this man who could snuff them out because there's no one to protect them? This is what Joseph says. As for you, what you meant for evil against me, Haley, whatever's happening in your life, whatever evil's coming against you right now, Marius, Caroline, Mommy, Salome, Johan, Glynis, Ken, $200. Jillian, me, I'm talking to me. Whatever's meant for evil against us right now, God is meaning it for good. How much do we trust him? How much are you still willing to say God is sovereign? I'm asking you. Are you still willing to say that? When the most bizarre things just happen. You've got to work on a Monday morning. Everything that you would never even have thought of goes wrong. Out of the blue, I'm telling you, out of the blue. You would plan your Monday morning like the normal and, okay, this needs to, and then evil just comes out of the blue. And at that moment, family, I'm telling you, things that have happened to me have made me very, very angry. But at that moment in my anger, am I willing to bow my knee to say, God, what is meant for evil against me, you meaning for good? Romans 8:28, go there someone. Romans 8:28. Acts chapter 2 as well, by the way. But let's go to Romans 8:28. Very important verse this. And by the way, CF that 250. Compare that to, write a big CF in chapter 50. Romans 8:28. Remember, what you meant for evil, God means for good. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for the good, for those who are called according to his purpose. For we know that those who love God and bow to his sovereignty, all things, evil, well, good is just the easy part. But Paul is talking more of the evil here. All things, Johan, are meant for the good of those who love God and live according to his what? His purposes. How do you live according to God's purpose? Knowing who he is, knowing that he is sovereign, and bowing your knee to him every single time. It's easy to bow your knee when you get your bonus. It's easy to bow your knee when you get your pensioner's check at the end of the month. What does my mom call it? The happy hour. Hey, 1 hour of happiness. Because it's in and it's out. It's easy to bow your knee. But the other 28 days of the month, will you bow your knee? All things work together for those who love God, for their good, and who live according to his purposes. One more, Acts chapter 2:22. I need to show you this. And 23. Now, Joseph, again, bearing in mind what you meant for evil, God has meant for good. For what? For the saving of nations. For the saving of nations. For the saving of people. People like you, Haley. People like you, Marius. People like you, Caroline. You are a Christian. Why? Why? Because of God's sovereignty. You should be dead. I know you. You're my mother. You should be dead. You shouldn't be sitting here. All things work together for the good of those who love him. Men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested to you by God with mighty works and wonders and signs that God did through him in your midst, as you yourselves know. This Jesus, you delivered. It was you. Up according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. You murdered him, but don't think God was not in control. Don't think for a moment that God was not in control. You crucified and killed by the hands of lawless men. Do you see why I say Joseph is the antitype of Christ? Everything that could have possibly gone wrong. Who in their right mind at 70 years age, that's the prime of your life, 17 to 30. From 30 to 35, it's downhill. Let's be honest. Prime of your life. Would you ever think for a moment you would spend 9 to 10 years in a pit? By the way, it was a pit. The Bible tells us they took him from the pit and brought him to Pharaoh. What pit? You had a poo there. You had to do your toilet stuff there. And that was the better place, by the way, than the other prisons where Potiphar placed Joseph. What you meant for good, God meant for evil. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. Why? For the saving of nations. Yeah, Acts chapter 22. Act 2, 22, 23 tells us exactly the same. That's why I say Joseph is the antitype of Christ. Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good of those who love him and live according to his purposes. You're going to live according to his purpose. Now I want to end. I want to tell you this. And you need to get this very quickly. Let me start with Abraham. And then you'll get the picture. God's sovereign. He could have done anything else. But I want you to see this in the scheme, the lineal time of man, and in the scheme of things according to God's sovereign plan using man. If Abraham was not called out of the Ur of Chaldeans, we would have never had Isaac, the promised son, from whom all blessing would come. By the way, blessing of who? Jesus Christ. But if Abraham wasn't come, we wouldn't have had Isaac. We wouldn't have had Jacob. We wouldn't have had Joseph, the antitype. Joseph would never have gone into Goshen and brought his people into Goshen. Then you would have never had the mass exodus. Because remember in chapter 12, the dream, Surah 15, the dream for 400 years, that would never have taken place. I want to show you the sovereignty of God. That would never have taken place. If Abraham wasn't called, Isaac didn't beget Jacob, Jacob didn't beget all these sons, including Joseph, Joseph wasn't sold into slavery, into Potiphar's house, into the prison, into Pharaoh's presence, to be prime minister, to be in charge of all the land, bringing all the people into the land of Goshen. And then there's the very next one is Exodus chapter 1, and where the people are enslaved by a new Pharaoh, by the way, a Hittite, who comes in and sees how great these Jews are growing, that he makes them all slaves, once again, for 400 years. And for 400 years, if Joseph wasn't around, that would not have taken place. After that, the Exodus would not have taken place. After that, the marriage of Israel would not have taken place. After that, you would not have had the prophets. After that, you would not have had Jesus Christ. I'm telling you. Do you see the sovereign plan of God? Not one misspoken word. Even from Genesis 2. Bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. And here we read these, and they're so beautiful stories, some of them are ugly. Samson and Goliath. Samson and Delilah, rather, David and Goliath. and read these, but we don't see the sovereignty and how in control God is of every single move. I was telling my wife, it is just so much. It is so rich. It's meant to be so rich that we are meant to walk away here and just know fully that every move I make, in Him we live and we move and we breathe and we have our being. Book of Romans. Paul utters those words. Do you see the sovereignty of God? This, my friends, looks like one big mess up. One big mess up. But every single person in this family group had a very, very big role to play. By the way, let me end. I want to tell you a little thing. Remember I told you I wouldn't say too much about Tamar and Judah? You know, Judah has intercourse with Tamar. You know the story. Do you know who comes out of the line of Tamar? Jesus. How in the world's name, God, heaven's name, could that happen? God's in control. You think the ugliest cock-up you make, that God can't have a say in that? The ugliest mess-up that you can make, God can't use for the good? Think about it. Go and read chapter 37. Go and read it. Actually, chapter 38. Read that account and try and get your mind around that account of these two people. But out of that seed comes Jesus. But out of that seed into Joseph's, it's just one way, Jesus, who would come and redeem the world and come and save you from your wretched sins. That's why I say, is God sovereign? I'm leaving you with that question. Are you going to say that easily, or are you going to give that some thought? Because tomorrow is coming, family. You want more to come. Can I say something to you very quickly? Last Monday, I went to work having my plans. I cannot tell you what hell broke loose. I'm not even going to even begin to tell you. And in all of that, I questioned myself. Are you going to bow your knee? Are you going to bow your knee? Let's pray. Lord, I don't even know if this made sense. But all I know, Lord Jesus, I just know that you are sovereign. I'm not going to declare it. You need not my voice. You are. You are, Lord. I don't make you Lord. You are, Lord. I don't make you sovereign. You are sovereign. I don't make you El Shaddai. You are El Shaddai. Elohim, you are Elohim. I don't make you that. I'll bow to that. Like Joseph said to his brothers, you will bow. They bowed. Because that is a pre-type of Christ. Because every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. But we sitting here today, Lord, I think it's a privilege that we can say, you are Lord, because you've adopted us into your family. But Father, those to come, those that we rub shoulders with at work and during our lives, will they see the favor of God even when everything's going wrong? Will they see the sovereignty of God in our lives? Will we be that shining light? That's my question. So I suppose from a simple story, we end with this. Are you sovereign in our lives? Are we bowing our knee? Are we falling on our face in absolute and utter worship, where we need no music to emotionalize us, but Father, do we fall before you and say, woe is me, I'm undone? I ask you, Lord, through this, and perhaps we'll carry on with this next week, but this time that we've had together, work in our hearts, bind us together. I'm asking Jesus in your precious name. Amen.